I'm getting older by day, younger at night. I need a little something to feel alright. Yeah, do what you wanna when you wanna do something now. Yeah, you do what you wanna when you wanna do something now. Chances are you've made some choices, but I'll hear no inner voice.
Welcome, Kevin. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. Cool to be
man.
here.
So we're wondering, going back a while, what was it like growing up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania? And how did that influence you getting into punk rock?
Yeah, that's probably my biggest influence would be Harrisburg. I still have not warmed up to that city after all these years. Just
It's a cold
Man,
city, huh?
yeah, man, it's just icy, the personalities of people, and not like cool icy, like it's just like shitty icy, just disconnected or something like that. Growing up, I guess the first big thing when I think back about like Harrisburg or like my childhood would be TMI. That was a big influence on me. Yeah, nuclear reactor. Shit, I remember getting like evacuated, I guess in kindergarten at the time, and they're like, we're on the verge of a nuclear meltdown. But I think having an event like that happen like so young, just kind of like, I don't know, really started to shape the way I perceive the world at that point in time.
Is this a known thing? So when you were in grade school, there was did you live next to like a nuclear power plant?
Yeah, well, not right next door to it. A few miles away, I guess, is pretty much right next door to it.
And they had like a meltdown scare. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Would have, I guess, had it happened, it would have taken out like the entire Northeast, and they let, they weren't trying to keep people calm, they're like, I think we went to my grandparents' house, which was like, where was that? Like Pottsville, Pennsylvania, where my, which would have made a difference. Like having
I was saying like
yeah. So it was, just trying to go somewhere. And so that was kind of scary, but that kind of, I don't, that's the event that comes to mind. Like my first memories, like growing up there. So you had that. And then I guess, that kind of like, I knew like at that point in time, like kind of like this world I have to grow up in, was born into, was like not a safe place, and like crazy shit can just happen at any fucking time. So I just, kind of made a note of that. And for the most part, it's like your typical, like state capital, kind of go nowhere kind of town. Not, I still have friends there, so I don't mean it like, but as a kid, like I just never felt like I fit in there. It just seemed to be nowhere. Like I had the whole town figured out, like by the time I was 8, and I just didn't see like anything good that can come from it. So I guess that led more to my interest in music. Listen to the radio a lot. But I probably first, let me think here, like growing up there, like the first instrument I played, I think 4th grade. And like that was the cello, because my mom wouldn't get me a guitar at all. So I was like stuck playing like this cello, and I couldn't play it at all. But the good thing was, after I guess a few years of kind of faking that, I was able to take like electric bass lessons by the time I hit 13. So that kind of opened things up. I'm trying to think what else. The friends I had, I guess you guys interviewed them, like Greg Lonesome.
Yeah.
I went to school with him. Dave Mainliner, all of us went to elementary school together. So there were some cool things about growing up there. I guess my exposure to like underground or more aggressive music like happened at a pretty early age, because Dave, who was like my best friend back then, his uncle had played in, he was a founding member of Poison, the one, the only, Central PA's finest. And I guess when they had gone out to LA, his girlfriend he got his girlfriend pregnant, whatever. But by the time they got signed, CC DeVille had taken his place. And so we thought it was like the coolest thing that, like, you know, and his uncle lived right near us, that this guy who was in Poison, you know, like lived down the street. So, you know, I was always excited to be around this guy and just like ask questions, you know, about music, bands, and yeah, I guess kind of starstruck. But the cool thing that came from it was my exposure to, like, that was the first time I heard Generation X or the New York Dolls, Stooges, because his uncle would make us tapes like, hey, if you know, you guys are thinking about playing music, here's what you should be listening to. And that was kind of like my prime. So that was really cool. You know, like I'll badmouth Harrisburg, but it was kind of cool. I kind of had that take place because, you know, that, you know, that would change everything, you know, from that point on. And what it really, I'm trying to think. Yeah, so I guess, you know, getting exposed to that kind of music at that point, I just like, I don't know if kids are like that nowadays. I'm like, I want to be in a band, you know.
Doesn't seem like it.
What's that?
It doesn't seem like it.
Like I wanted to be in a band?
No, like kids today.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that's like a big thing, you know. You know, I don't really see it anywhere, but you know, when I was growing up, that was kind of like, you know, I'm going to be in a band, and like, you know, there you go. And to me, I think that appealed to me so early on because I felt so stuck there or trapped, that could be a way out, you know, could see different places, get out of town. So I'm trying to get my timeline straight here. So yeah, growing up there, getting exposed to that kind of music, and then getting exposed to it was a big moment. I think Johnny Thunder's Stations of the Cross. I think that's when I was 13. And, you know, I don't know if it's the greatest live album ever made. I don't think anyone will ever say that. I'm sure there's a few. But I guess at that point, like, school just bored me. Like it just, you know, wasn't doing it. I didn't have like an interest, like, you know, when I grew up, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a doctor, I want to do this, I want to, I don't know, save the world, or like none of that like appealed to me, you know.
Yeah.
Just because I guess growing up like in a state capital, a town like that, there's just kind of like this weird atmosphere, and it's just like so stagnant and kind of stale and mediocre. I'm like, you know, I don't want to end up like this. And this music's exciting, and you know, maybe it'll get me out of here. I can do something with it. So after I heard Stations of the Cross, it's like when I'm 13, you know, and his performance on there, I was like, I can fucking do this, you know, like that's cool. Like he's only making it like halfway through the song, stopping, you know, telling everyone to fuck off, and like this is cool as shit, you know, like this is what I want to do. So, you know, that kind of changed everything right there. And we started our first band. Dave was in that when we were in like junior high. I think it was like the 8th grade we started. And that was exciting because we're like, oh, cool, we can play the fucking talent show, you know. And so we, you know, rehearsed and played. You know, I don't have like the videotape of like when we did any of that stuff, but I'm sure it wasn't that great. But you know, it was a big deal at the time. I guess getting on stage appealed to me. You know, I felt like I had some kind of like power or more control than I, you know, normally would have. And it was just exciting, getting involved with that, and just you know, hearing, I guess, growing up, going to the like mall and seeing like East Coast Rocker, and at that point in time, you'd see like advertisements and stuff for like Johnny Thunder's, you know, Catch Him Live Before He Dies, and I was like, that sounds like that's fun, you know, like how do I get there? How do I become part of this? You know, like all I need to know is just like a few chords and, you know, have some attitude, and you know, that's what I want to do. So, you know, I kept playing in band. Well, kept that band going for a few years. I mean, we did covers. We were pretty terrible, you know, playing kids' birthday parties. You know, this is like for like 13, 14, 15-year-olds. But what was cool, I guess, about music and doing that, it allowed me to kind of like interact with the world in a different way. that I felt I could be, more of myself.
Hmm.
It was just like a format I was comfortable in, and, I really started to kind of, get hooked on the whole being in a band, being on a stage, and those are just really cool things. And, just aspiring to be, like, just a B version of Johnny Thunders. I'm like, so that's what I'll do, so I don't have to worry about like, well, get all these good grades, what school are you going to go to, like any of that shit. I guess I was just very monofocused, I guess, on having some type of Johnny Thunders style existence, because to me that seemed like a much better reality than I saw in, Harrisburg, PA, where it's just everyone kind of, you just wake up every day and you just kind of do the same thing over and over. And like, it didn't make any sense to me. Like, I know why people do that, but it just wasn't very interesting to me.
Yeah. No, I get you, man. I totally get you. So you mentioned you played cello when you were a kid. What made you pick that up? Like, what made you want to learn that?
I didn't really want to learn it at all. I originally, I guess, the party left out growing up. I really wanted to play guitar. And my elementary school, I guess at that point in time, I guess they used to give like acoustic guitar lessons to kids, and they had stopped. So it was either like, an oboe, a cello, or like a tuba. And I was like, well, a cello, maybe I can figure out a way to do like guitar style.
Closest thing, like
right? Yeah. And oh man, I was so terrible. I'd have to, we do like these little school concerts, and they'd have me like fake play, because I had no idea what I was doing. And I didn't care to practice, either. But, what led to that was, the story's so dumb. So if you're playing like a stringed instrument and then you get to junior high and you're like 13, you're eligible to take electric bass lessons. So I'm like, well, if I stick this out for a few years, and just pretend like I know what I'm doing, I can, learn how to play bass. And eventually I did, get to take bass lessons and do that. And then get my first electric bass when I was 13. But yeah, the cello, I pretty much like had, no other choice. And that was like the only way I could see maybe one day getting my hands on some type of guitar, bass guitar. It was a guitar. That's all that mattered. But I wasn't like into classical music or anything like that. No.
Well, fun fact,
Rick Springfield was a big influence.
That's cool.
Like, the second grade, it was like Solid Gold, and he had performed Love Is All Right Tonight. And I guess that was pre Johnny Thunders. At that moment in time, like I really knew like that's where I got to be. That's what I want to do. Like I just got so excited, so but yeah, it was Rick Springfield was one who did it. It wasn't
segue.
like,
he was a segue.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a gateway drug. So I think that, so you're asking, how did I end up playing the cello? So yeah, that's kind of what happened with that. Yeah.
Cool. So I know on Bandcamp, you have all of the mainliner recordings. So what was the kind of the story of the rise and fall of mainliner, and then how the Prostitutes ended up forming?
Okay. Yeah. That's a long one. So I'm just getting it sorted out. Yeah. It's like, these questions are great. Cause there's just like so much I'm like, I have in my head at one time, kind of trying to sort it out. And once again, Dave was in mainliner. Like I said, we kind of like had our junior high joke band where we did, covers, and, we weren't super, serious at that point. I guess we were just trying to learn to play our instruments. And, so towards the end of that, we decided like the other guys we had in this, our little group were like too square for us. So we had to get some rock and rollers in here. But we really didn't find those rock and rollers for the most part. There were some other kids, like in our high school, and so it was a change of pace, and they could play a little bit better than these two other guys. And I decided that, like, hey, I want to start. At this point, I had done, some singing here and there in, the cover band, I would sing, like, we would do Johnny Thunders, Motorhead, TSOL, Joe Woods era TSOL songs. And, I was like, well, at this point, I'm just playing the bass, and I'm like, I want to play guitar and sing. That's what I wanted to do. So the one guy we got into the band, that would be Brian. He went on to be in the Prostitutes too. He had like a really nice Strat. And I was like, dude, you can be in my band if you play the bass, and then you'll play my bass and I'm going to play your guitar, because I didn't have any money to get one. And that's how he ended up, in the band with Mainliner. And then we had two other guys, Greg and Eli. It's a different Greg. But we all went to the same high school. So at that point, we started like writing. I did, original material. And we had a little like hardcore club in the area. I don't know if you remember it, Josh. And the Core was in Enola, PA.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But, they had a few major bands come through there. Like, they'd have All Play, Poison Idea, stuff like that. But it was short-lived. I think it was only around for like 2 or 3 years. And they were always getting shut down and shows would get canceled half the time. But we're like, there's this hardcore club and stuff. So, let's get a band together and write some songs to do it. And we did. And then we started, there just wasn't, there weren't a lot of places to play or really much of a scene. So we're like, well, not even thinking like this is like, like a hardcore thing to do, like VFW hall shows. We're like, well, we'll have to rent out a place like, we did for like those birthday parties and shit. And we'll just put on our own show. And so we did that. And then it was cool, like, going around to the malls and flyering. And then as we did that, I guess kids from the other side of the river, we lived on the East Shore. And then there was the West Shore, started to get in touch with us. Like, hey, we're into this kind of music too. We have a band. So right then and there, we, started networking with bands outside of, Harrisburg, and got to know a bunch of like new people, really cool people, got turned on to, even more underground music. So that was really cool. So during that time, Mainliner, we were just kind of like cutting our teeth, learning to put on shows, like how to put them on. And we would have pretty decent turnouts. And then we did our first demo. I think I was 17 at the time. And that's, what songs? That's like Black Getting Blacker. Josh might know this stuff. I don't know if he listened to the ancient Mainliner recordings. But we did that, and we recorded that in Harrisburg with this dude. I can't remember his name. But he went on to do like Lenny Kravitz records and like Mike Musmano. I'm not sure what he's up to nowadays, but yeah, I guess he turned out to be a big deal. So it's they were great recordings, but the songs were just kind of average. It wasn't all there, but people liked it. And I didn't know how to write a better song at the time. So we just kind of kept doing that. I'm trying to think how long that went on for, quite some time. So maybe until I was 21, right around there. At that point, we had put out our one and only 7-inch. But before that, we had our first demo and then our second demo, and then we put them both on like one cassette, and that did pretty well. Like, we'd sell out like 100 copies at the local record store.
It's not bad.
And that was, we thought we were rock stars, because that was a big deal. So after that, we managed to get on a mini tour with FYP. I guess this would have been the height of Mainliner's success. And we went from PA out to Chicago and back with them. And that was pretty cool because the Chicago show, that was the Riverdales and Boris the Sprinkler. And that's where I got to meet Ben Weasel for the first time. And that was
do you want to elaborate on that? How did that go?
It was cool. I guess we caught him on a good night. He was actually in a good mood that night, and I didn't even know it was him until one of the guys in FYP was like, hey, this is Ben Weasel. I was like, oh, all right. And like, he was just hanging out, like, hey, how'd the drive go here? How's the tour going? And I just thought he was some dude that was just, hanging out backstage or whatever. And then they're like, oh yeah, that's Ben. But he was nice,
Oh, cool.
my dealings with him, I probably talked to him for like 10 minutes, but no prima donna shit or anything like that. They put on a good set. If anything, that show with them and meeting him, it was kind of boring. It wasn't,
not eventful. That's cool.
Yeah. But that would have been, I guess, the height of Mainliner right there. And we had put out, our 7-inch at that point in time. And then I think Maximum Rock and Roll kind of bashed it, and we thought for sure, like, oh, they're going to dig it. We all read it, every month, and trying to think what the review said. Oh, because it burned at the time. Just like, suburban, typical generic punk or something, just kind of short and shitty.
You remember who reviewed it?
That just crushed me at the time, because we had been working on these songs, I don't know, for like the last 2 years. And, so at that point, it didn't really take off. The 7-inch, I think Flipside gave it. I think that was Tony from the Adolescents gave it a really good review.
Oh,
but
wow.
It was like getting shot down. What was that?
Oh, I just said, wow, that's cool.
Yeah. But getting shot down in MRR to me, like, I was like, man, what am I going to do? So at that point, I guess we were all starting to get frustrated. Like, we just didn't know what else to do with the band. It just kind of felt like we were just going in circles and circles, and it was fun. We all hung out with each other so much, and we're kind of intertwined with each other's lives, girlfriends and things like that. We were all just kind of fucking burned out, after like 5 years, whatever it was. And that the 7-inch just really, like I said, wasn't going anywhere. A few people wrote some nice things about it, but it wasn't what I guess I pictured in my head. So at that point in time, trying to think, we had been towards the end, we were playing a lot of shows. There's a band called the Tuners that was from Harrisburg as well. And the Tuners were Dave Cohen, Justin Haley, and then Jeff Peterson, who were to go on to join the Prostitutes. But they really, so we had played, we're playing shows with them, hanging out with them, and they were really into the Hate You 7-inch and thought it was great. And had said to me, like, hey, like, we want to do recording. Do you think you could come and produce it? And I thought I could. Like, I knew nothing about, what production was at that point in time. I knew a few things. And I was like, okay, that'll be cool. Yeah, I'll help someone else, out with the recording and let you know, how I think it should sound. And the day I was supposed to do that, I got like fucked up or something the night before, woke up late, like missed it, whatever. And they went and recorded anyways. And I was like, all right, well, there goes my shot at being a producer. And then, so I called them like to apologize. And they were like, hey, like, we're looking for like another guitar player in our band, and we kind of want to do some different things. Do you want to come down and just jam with us like sometime? And I was like, sure. And that was really cool because I had been so bummed from Mainliner, at the end of everything, after all the time and just like all the anticipation of, I don't know, something bigger happening, and it just never did. That, this was something like new I could sink my teeth into. So I went over to their jam space, which I think was Justin's basement, and he lived behind a junkyard. There's a Prostitutes photo. I think it's on the Pilato compilation. What was that fucking thing called? This is Punk Rock. That I'm talking about, Josh.
This is it. Punk Rock Gets Real.
But the junkyard, you can see the junkyard in that photo. We're like standing in front of it. So I went there, and then, we just, we kind of clicked, and it was cool because they were like, because what they were doing at the time was kind of like this negative approach kind of style, like hardcore. meets like adrenaline OD kind of thing.
Hmm.
And they wanted to get some more rock and roll into their sound. And they thought I was the guy because they made fun of me from what they told me. I guess other people told me too. When Mainliner would play, we used to play this club all the time too. It was called Decibels. It was in Central PA. And their nickname for me was rock and roll son of a bitch, just because how I acted in that band. Like, okay, got my leather jacket on, mister. I'm going to get myself all done up, you know? And, but at the same time, I guess they respected it, you know, to some degree too, that they, you know, wanted to bring me on board. They're like, yeah, like, how do we put more rock and roll into our sound? And then at that point, they like showed me one of their new tunes they've been working on. And then, you know, I was like, well, here, try the chorus this way, try the verse this way. And I'm going to do this on guitar. And I can do some backing vocals. And we started doing that. And then like everything just kind of gelled, and it was like kind of really cool. So from like then on, we just kind of like started getting together more. And they're like, shit, we should just turn this into a brand new band, you know, and we'll forget about Mainliner and the Tuners. And then that's when the Prostitutes happened at that point in time. You know, it was funny because when the Prostitutes happened, like I was really like fed up with music. I really thought like that shitty review in MRR was like as far as it was, you know, as it was going to go. Like just depressed and like, oh, I hate my life and like this town sucks. But I guess that's kind of like how I sublimated that, you know, kind of just starting, the Prostitutes. It just kind of happened, you know, out of all the kind of like that frustration and, you know, resentment. And because there's always like a part of me that's like, fuck, man, like instead of giving up, man, like I got to fight back. Like, you know, can I do better? And if I can do better, like then I fucking need to do it, you know? So, you know, bad reviews or, you know, criticism hurts, but, you know, I try to take it in a way that like, is there something I can make better, you know? And you have to do that, you know, to get better.
Yeah.
And so I think that paid off after a while, kind of taking that approach. But yeah, it was great. Like when that band started, it was just kind of like just a little side thing, and I wasn't expecting much to come out of it. And it was really cool. We all kind of clicked in that band. And I think Justin was an avid record collector at that time, and he turned me on to all kinds of shit, you know, I really hadn't heard or been exposed to or had only heard of, you know. And then unlike the other guys who were really into the more hardcore stuff, like he loved like the Buzzcocks and Wire and stuff like that. And I was really into that stuff as well. But it felt like at that point in time, I was like the only person into that stuff, like in Harrisburg. I didn't really have anyone else to kind of share that passion or interest with. So yeah, it was cool, you know, when it all took off. And then it happened pretty quick. Once we got started, I think within like 4 months later, we were recording, the first 7-inch. With you know, Get Me Sick, Modern White Trash.
Yeah.
With those songs, speaking of the end of Mainliner, I think why they kind of came together so well is those songs, we were already playing them in the late stages of Mainliner. And they were different versions, you know, with different words, like a different bridge and things like that here and there. But like 1, 2, 3, go, Get Me Sick, 22, Nighttime Parasite. Like a lot of those were, they were being played in the Mainliner set, you know, at the end. So when I brought those over to those guys, they were kind of like half done. And then I had started to change my singing style at the time too. Because Mainliner, it's kind of like all low range. And I'm like, well, I'm getting a bad review on that. Maybe I should try a high range, you know? And I wasn't comfortable doing it, but I was just so like fucking frustrated. I just started screaming this shit, you know? Then I was like, oh shit, I can scream in key, you know, like maybe I'm onto something. And that's kind of where that came from. It was pretty much like Mainliner, but I'm singing an octave higher and there's a little more oomph in it. I guess I was trying to it's kind of like the birth of like the inner mojo kind of moment, you know, where you kind of find what fits. And then, I really like that. And I was like, fuck, I'm really getting into singing. And when I sing, I get really excited. Like I'm jumping off the ground, like I can't be playing a fucking guitar. Let's get a rhythm guitar player in here, and bam. And that's when I just became, vocalist at that point. But when we had started the Prostitutes, I was playing guitar and singing and not singing every song at that point. But yeah, it was crazy.
Well, whatever you did, man, it worked. It clicked.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hey, I wanted to switch gears here for just a second and talk Fear and Loathing.
Oh,
the zine that you had or have, is it? But I wanted to ask, what prompted you to start a zine where you did reviews and interviews? What led to the decision to start that? And any of the interviews that you did like stick out to you?
Oh yeah, definitely. What led to that? 2 words: Eric Davidson, the New Bond Terps. So it wasn't his idea, but what went down was he was doing the book, Gunk Punk Gunk. You know what that's called?
Yeah,
the book he did.
Yeah, he's coming out with a second one of that, I think.
Oh, okay. Because he had hit me up. I was living in, this is after I'd moved to the West Coast, obviously. And I was living in Long Beach. And he was like, oh, hey, Kevin Prostitute, I'm doing this book about 90s punk and give me something crazy, something outrageous, And so I get like wasted to shit. Like, I'm really going to get into this, like be a writer, because even though I wasn't much of one at that point in time, and whatever like piece of shit I sent off to him, like it got rejected. And I thought for sure, like, it's going to make the book, and then, like, yeah, I got past. All these other bands got in there, like all those Crip Records bands and, in the Red bands. And I'm trying to think of the names, but, it just kind of, I was like, even though what I submitted probably was half-assed and I was really fucked up and it probably wasn't that like fucking interesting. Like it pissed me off. I was like, fuck, man, I guess he thinks I can't fucking write, And at this point, I was doing the West Coast lineup of the Prostitutes. I was burned out on it. I think we had just finished recording Kill Them Before They Eat. And we just had so many personnel problems. I had so many problems. I think everyone in that lineup had been to like rehab that year. And I was just fed up and I was just uninspired. And, I was like, I'm taking a break. So, when I took the break, this, rejection came with the Gunk Punk book. And I was like, you know what, man, then I'm going to start my own thing. I'm going to do what Josh does. I've read Josh since, been reading him since the 90s, like maybe I'll try my hand at that and I'll just add my own thing to it. And I think when I first started, I think I emailed you, Josh, or I asked you like, hey, how do you do this? Like, how do you post this? How do you do that? And you told me everything, and he got me on my way, actually. And when I started, I had no idea what I was doing. I just wanted to elevate myself to a point where I could be like, see, Eric, I am a published writer or whatever, and and here I am like earlier being like, I don't let criticism get to me. But it was never anything personal. So then I started, Fear and Loathing, and a big inspiration for that outside of that, rejection. It was like trauma films, like they do the horror films.
Oh, right.
They had put out like this DVD, How to Make Your Own Movie, So I kind of followed like their showbiz advice, and I was like, you know what? That's how I'm going to approach this blog magazine thing I'm doing. Like, I'm just going to get in there and fucking do it. And man, like, I can't even read like some of the stuff, like the earliest articles or reviews. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing at that point in time. And I'm like, but I don't give up. I'm like, I'm just going to keep fucking doing it. What's the worst that's going to happen?
Right.
So I kind of kept going. And then I was like, shit, people are reading this, I don't know why. So I got a little bit better at it. I taught myself what I could of like magazine design, layout, and all of that. And just started kind of like, I guess the original idea was like, I want a magazine that you can flip through, but a digital version of it.
Yeah,
And then we'll
I
do
remember that. I was looking at that. I'm like, whoa, this is really cool. Like clicking the little arrows and it
yeah.
flipped like a page. Yeah.
Yeah, it never caught. I mean, I guess it did. It caught on for a little while, and there was like a service that provided that for me, and so I wasn't the only one with that idea. I just thought it would be cool, and it kind of gave me some motivation to, do it. So, trying to think of, I guess, when I was doing the magazine, I had a reference, like old MRRs or Flipside magazine. I was a huge fan. I love Flipside.
Yeah, me too.
So much. That was always my favorite scene. So I'm like, I want to fucking do something like that, like something cool where it's just a little bit of everything. And so I started, and I'm trying to think of, man, like the first issue, we had this like pinup model from the UK, and she was like, I can't believe I let you like put me in this, like like this is shit. She was like, you have no idea what you're doing. Your graphics are fucking terrible. It looks cheap. And I'm like, oh my God. Well, yeah, that was issue number 1, and I thought, there's some
first issue.
I interviewed, what's that?
I said, hey, it's the first issue, give me a break.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it was kind of good that I heard that, because I kind of thrive off of that, when someone kind of calls me out, and I just want to get back and do something bigger and better. I always kind of want to outdo the last thing I did. So yeah, that first issue, and I think Jim from Underground Medicine, I interviewed him. Sergio from White Zoo Records. I'm trying to think. Erica Case was in there. I might have done an interview with Rick Hostage at that point, I think, of the first issue. And that was cool because he came on board for a little bit, and he had like his own column with drag racing photos and things like that. So as that went on, I was surprised, and that was just, I guess, the way I presented issue number 1. The next thing I know, I'm getting this email from Kim Fowley's assistant. Like, he's personally requested you to interview him. I'm like, why?
What?
Everyone just told me this is like a piece of shit. Like, this online zine I just did, like, has typos in it, run on sentences. Not like that matters, but still, I'm like, I don't see what the appeal is, So yeah, that was crazy. And I guess someone he knew, he had come across the zine or whatever, or his assistant did, and they're like, yeah, this guy sounds intelligent, let's do an interview with him. And I was like, holy fuck, and that blew my mind. I was like, holy shit, and I'm
That's
gonna
cool.
interview Kim Fowley. And I was like, do I take a video camera with me? What do I do? I have no idea how to do any of this shit, and I just kind of make it up as I go along. So I think the night before I was supposed to interview him, I went out, bought a camera for like a couple $100. I didn't test it or do anything like that. The first time I opened it was when I showed up at his house, and
Oh man.
he wasn't crazy about that. Yeah, I was really nervous. He's giving me shit, and it was insane. That was probably the most memorable, I would say, of all the interviews, because I ended up hanging out with him then maybe like 10 hours that day.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I guess his thing was, he was like, I see like the raw talent in there, whatever. And I just want to give you like some pointers. And, I just want to, like, help you become like a better writer, better interviewer, better showbiz player. I don't fucking know, but kind of everything I learned from him on that day, like really, was pretty profound. Just as in, I don't know, like, just, I don't know how to talk to people, kind of how to get them to open up, how to, get people to open up that, normally won't. And I guess a lot of psychological tricks I learned from him, and he took his time to go over it. Yeah.
You have to pass some of these tips to Josh and me one of these days.
Okay. But it was nerve-wracking, man. I think I was shaking when I first got there. he was like, "You're 45 minutes late." It was like something, you know, like how they depict him in the Runaways film. It was like straight out of that. And it's like, what? And I was like, what are you fucking doing? This is all because they didn't publish some drunk rant in like Eric's book, you know, and now I'm out here doing this. You know, why? You know, I don't understand myself sometimes, you know. But, you know, we got through it. And then like he helped me like with the questions, the way I was phrasing things. Like, hey, you should phrase it this way. Try it this way. You have too many questions in here. And yeah, that really helped actually, like quite a bit. It actually made me more confident in my own work by the time I left. So yeah, that was, I know a lot of people have a lot of issues with him. But in my experience, you know, it was cool. I got those showbiz hints or pointers or tips, whatever you want to fucking call them. And at the same time, then after that, Long Gone from Sympathy, John then approached me too. And he's like, "Hey, I want you to interview me." I'm like, "These interviews are terrible. Like,
what
these
the
questions
hell?
suck." I'm like,
you know,
what am I
did.
missing?
I did Audio Ammunition for like 5 years, and no fucking buddy ever asked me to interview him.
Yeah.
What does that say?
Whatever Josh told me to do in the beginning helped, but I don't have that old email. Whatever advice Josh gave me early on must have done the trick, I guess. But yeah, it was crazy. And then the Long Beach Independent, which is like their local like music, you know, weekly newspaper online thing. We're like, "Hey, do you want to do a column for us?" You know, and I started doing that. And then, I think by the time I had, you know, around that time I had done the interview with John, and that was huge. I think, you know, like the reads on that within like a week or something was like 75,000. And I'm like, holy fuck. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And all these people are reading this shit, you know? So I guess, you know, I still don't know.
There was
what
something
the magic
unique. There was something unique about it, dude. I remember reading your zine, and I'm like, yeah, this is pretty damn good. I'm like, this is like way better than what me and Ed do. This is actually a zine.
Oh, really? Well, thanks. Because it never seemed like that to me. You know, I was just kind of scattered brain the entire time, you know, I was doing it. But it was cool, though. I kind of learned obviously to become a better writer through doing that, and how to express myself through writing. So that was cool, because I guess my approach was with you know, interviews or even just record reviews, I'd always interject some, you know, personal anecdote in there, or something, you know, that like, here's why I relate to this, or here's what it reminds me of. And that's kind of what I did. And I decided, like, from day one, I was going to do that. And I'm like, if people don't like it, man, like, you don't have to fucking read it, you know? So, but it's still crazy, you know, and I still hear, you know, things, or people write to me that are interviewed back then, or that really, you know, dug the magazine, and they're still like, "Hey, are you ever going to do it again?" And it was crazy. But some of the writing, you know, I'm really proud of, and some of it, to me, it's cringeworthy. I can't even look at it.
Everybody has those, dude. Everybody has those.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's always the ones that you're like, ooh, like I'll look back at some of my old reviews. And I'm like, God, that's so embarrassing.
Oh man.
But, you know.
Do you have any that are like extremely like embarrassing? Or?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was this one band, this band called the Sugar Stems. And I actually asked her if I can't remember exactly what I said, but I asked the question if, because I read this review where they used the term golden retriever melodies. And I said, so if your songs were a particular brand of dog, what would they be?
Oh.
I actually asked her this, but they responded well. They didn't fuck off.
That's
didn't
good.
Say anything like that, but shit like that. I'm like,
golden retriever melodies.
Yeah.
I'll remember that. Golden retriever melodies. Yeah. But yeah, I relate to what you're saying. Like, it's, some of it, I just look back like, oh my God, you know, like, fuck, like, this sounds pretentious. Like, I just sound like such a fucking dumbass. Like, who would waste fucking 2 minutes reading this shit? You know? And I'm not saying that like in like, a pretentious way. It's just, I don't know, I don't know what happened with it, but it was cool because it kind of just like took off out of nowhere. And it's like, fuck, like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
But I put whether I knew what I was doing or not, like I gave it like 3,000% of all my crazy energy, so I figure that counts for something. So maybe that's what helped it along. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun, a lot of fun. So I wish I could have done more with it. And I just kind of burned out after like 2 or 3 years. And the way I would describe it, it's kind of like, if you know a writer like who like dabbles in music, and they're a decent musician, but they just, like do a band for like 2 years and that's it. They never do it again. They're done. That's kind of like how writing was. Like after that time period I was doing it, I guess this would have been in like 2014 or 2015 when I kind of officially ended it. And I kind of started it 2010 or 2011, I think. So I guess it was like 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was just, I lost my train of thought there. Forgot what I was saying with,
How long you started, you're saying, that it's only like, being in a band for a couple years. It's something you tried and you pretty much don't really have any interest in doing it anymore, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And when I've tried, it doesn't flow like how it used to, it's just contrived, or I ran out of metaphors to use. That's what I told most people. And that,
hear you, man. And kudos to Josh for like using these adjectives. I'd write these reviews. I'm like, geez, how many times am I going to use this adjective?
Yeah, you just gotta keep.
There's only so many in the English language.
Yeah, you just use the same ones over and over again, and you just accept the fact that you have to if you're writing about music.
Yeah, with music, there are necessary cliches, songwriting's like that because it just sounds better, and that's all there is to it. Sometimes it's necessary, but I still like the ideas I had when I was reviewing records. I guess that was more at the Long Beach Independent. They were kind of like, because Josh had reviewed me over the years, so I think as with any musician or like artist, of course you like reading reviews about your shit, so a lot of how I would review other people's records, the adjectives, they were all pretty much stolen from Josh for the most part. I'm like, well, I know he knows what he's doing, so I'm just going to copy him, and then people are like, wow, man, you are an amazing record reviewer. And I'm just like, don't be fooled, man. Don't be fooled. But I added my own thing to it, but yeah, Josh was a big influence in my writing. Yeah, definitely. Josh. Yeah.
That's cool. So we wanted to kind of actually flip this back to the Prostitutes. It's amazing. We kind of talked about the birth of the band, and now here we are 26, 27 years later, and you still have the Prostitutes going. You're still making music. You're still making great music. So how do you continue to make this music and still make it good without repeating yourself?
I guess you just have to be conscious of the fact, for the most part. But it's kind of similar to like the story I was telling you at the magazine. It's just like by default, it happens that way. But I do make a conscious effort to, when I'm writing a song, to not have it repeat something, that I've done before. There are some things that are going to carry over, but throughout all those years, I'm always kind of singing about my life, what's taken place, and like in the moment. And there's always a different city, different state, different people, different interactions, different relationships. And those things kind of change the mood. So when I'm writing about each different place, like it kind of has its own identity. And I think that's kind of what gives the song some individuality. I'm just not trying to like write 10 street punk songs about street punk stuff. I just felt like saying that. Street punk stuff, 10 street punk songs about street punk stuff, and just to put it out there so I have a record, like I'm like, if you're gonna write about it, and you're gonna put your heart and soul into it, like you gotta live through that shit and like fucking write about it, like, man, like it's like a 2-minute rock opera, but a very simplistic version of one. And so I approach each song like that, kind of like it's going to be the greatest thing, I've ever written, just to kind of keep my standards high, because bands in general really bother me because they repeat themselves so much, or, every record only has 2 or 3 good songs. Everything else sounds the same. And that used to piss me off growing up. I'm like, I just paid $10 for this shit. And you guys are phoning it in, and you're not really concerned about the artistry. You're more concerned about your merch sales. And I just don't care about that kind of stuff. I've never gotten into it, or the merchandising. Like I could give a shit less. But keeping each song unique, or the quality with the Prostitutes. Now with the quality dip, you would have heard it if you heard some of the live incarnations over the years, but luckily all that stuff's been deleted. Like some of that, so there is some really awful stuff out there. But I try to make sure it doesn't see the light of day, but I think it's all gone at this point. And when I mean awful, I just mean kind of like half baked, or just like really fucking drunk. Blackout sessions, things like that. But yeah, I'm very, I guess methodical when I'm writing, and, before I even start writing, I have to kind of have a goal. Like, is this going to be like to get a new lineup together, new project? Is this going to be for an EP, or, do I just want to just throw a single out there? So I kind of have like a goal in mind, and then like a vibe, and, what's going to be different with this one. And it just kind of like comes to me, for the most part. And I'm lucky. I haven't had to, really repeat myself with, no, there's going to be some similarities, for the most part. I think I'm proud of most of it. I'd say, I can listen to most of it without cringing. But throughout, I'm trying to think, from the time we started up until now, like Shapeshift, the last EP, I'm very proud of that. Part of it's kind of like the swan song, and I wasn't sure at the time. But that was in mind. Like, is this going to be the last one? And it looks like I might revisit, the Prostitutes in the future. But I guess in some ways it feels like the Shapeshift EP, that's kind of like me coming full circle with the first half of my life. And now I'm getting started in the second half. And I'm like, I want like a new body of work, a new band, I'm always having new experiences, so that's not an issue. But I just don't, it feels like I'm dragging around like 23-year-old me everywhere I go, and yeah, and lots occurred since then. So I would say, I'm able to express myself better, or in a more complex kind of way, than I could, let's say 25 years ago. And when you're doing a band, that long, and we have so many great fans, so passionate, and it's really great. I'm very thankful for it. But there's a certain sound that, they're kind of with the Prostitute, there's definitely a style or a mode I go into when I'm writing a Prostitute song. But at the same time, that was also I was feeling trapped by that at the end. Running through it and being like, well, that's cool, but it doesn't sound like a Prostitute song, and it's just kind of like, I don't want to do like prog rock or anything like that, but I need like a new vehicle. It just doesn't seem to make sense to keep going under the Prostitute's name, at this point in time, for the most part. So I'm not sure if I had mentioned that to Josh or you before, I guess, or anyone. I guess they're going to hear it now.
Wow.
So yeah, in a way, it's kind of wrapped up, but I've said that 10,000 fucking times in the past, and then I'm back at it. So like, you never know. Someone pisses me off, or I feel I have to get it back together, and have something to prove, something like that.
Speaking of new vehicle, as we wind things down, before we go, I wanted to ask you real quick about your new project with Hillary Burton, Trouble Seekers. Yeah. First of all, man, my friend Ken texted me first thing this morning with the fucking link, the Bandcamp link to that, and he said, "Have you fucking heard this?" And I said, As a matter of fact, I have. And dude, it was phenomenal, man. Fucking bravo. Because that
Thank
EP
you.
is a fucking monster.
Thank you.
But can you tell us about how this came to be? Like,
Sure. Yeah. Once again, thank you. I fucking love hearing that. That makes my day, man. Like, I love hearing that. I know when I hear that kind of reaction, I know we've succeeded.
yeah, you did.
Which is cool. I want to people get excited, about it, and yeah, I just love generating that, feeling. So it came to be, get it straight here. When I'm currently living in Columbus, Ohio again. I was in Baltimore for 2.5 years, Baltimore, Maryland. And then, it just wasn't working out. And I think that was, and I was just there, and my relationship was kind of done, like, at the time. And it's kind of like, I guess, weird, because I was kind of like staying around there because I'm waiting for the shipment of records, Shapeshift from Germany, to show up. And you have all those fucking obnoxious delays and shit.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of hanging out in Baltimore, like, ready to go at any time, waiting for this box of records. They never do show up, and I end up, leaving to come back to go to Columbus, Ohio. And then I eventually got them. But anyways, so after that, and I moved here, my first thought, I was going to try to start up, like another version of the Prostitutes. And I had an ad up, like, in the musician classifieds, which is usually never a good idea. You're just going to get a real cast of characters responding. And, but, there's some people that, seem talented, responded. And it just reminded me of, like, how I just kind of felt finished, with the Prostitutes. I'm like, do I really want to go through this again? Like, should I be trying, like, this hard to get myself re-inspired, I guess, for lack of a better word? And I was like, I don't know. I'm just not feeling the way I think I should be feeling about it. So I've known Hillary since 2014. Yeah. So I had reviewed her band. That's when I was in Long Beach. Honeychain, and that voice, I immediately, the first time I heard it, fell in love with it. There's just something very unique about it. It's just awesome. So, obviously it had always been thought had crossed my mind that while I was in the Prostitutes, like, it'd be cool to have a song with some female vocals on it, or do something like that. And it just never kind of worked out. And I was like, oh, hey, well, maybe instead of, like, trying to, we're focusing on a live Prostitutes, maybe do, like, a one-off track and, with, like, female vocals. And at that point in time, I was feeling more confident, I guess, with my songwriting. In the past year, I was kind of on a roll with it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to approach her now, because I don't want to, approach her with, like, this fucking half-assed idea, like, I don't know, like some Dead Kennedys bullshit, and, like, here, just yell over it, not like I write Dead Kennedys bullshit, but, I wanted something exceptional. So she has an exceptional voice and she has exceptional talent. I'm like, all right. So, I contacted her, and I was like, she might not even, like, be into the idea. And she was like, yeah, fuck yeah, that sounds awesome. I've been wanting to ask you if you'd ever, like, want to collaborate on something.
Wow.
And it kind of started there. And then the first track we worked on, it was just supposed to be a one-off. That would have been Cruel Summer. And that song, that knowing I was going to be working with her, or just even just like in a one-off situation, kind of inspired me at that point. I think the night where she's like, yeah, I'm all on board, let's do it. I wrote that song, I think 20 minutes later, and, like, just wrote the entire thing, like, in 15 minutes. Like, it just came out. I was like, fuck, I haven't felt like that since, like, mid 90s when I was doing the Prostitutes. Like, I actually feel, like, inspired. And I realized how uninspired I had been until that moment in time, because it's a feeling I didn't think I'd feel again. And I was like, fuck, man, like, this is cool. And then, we started, recording, and then I was very much open to, like, hey, like, this isn't all just me. I want to hear your ideas. Like, how do you interpret what I'm doing? And she was like, sure. And then, like, we just gel, like, there's a synergy there. We're really good at, like, kind of bouncing off each other, bouncing ideas off of each other. So once Cruel Summer was completed, she kind of said to me, she's like, hey, I was thinking, like, at that point, it was still going to come out under the Prostitutes name. And she's like, this sounds cool. It sounds different. Do you think we should do like a different band name in case we want to do this again in the future? And I was like, would you be down to kind of just keep going with songs and seeing what we can do? And she was like, fuck yeah. And we got started, and it's a great songwriting creative relationship. And so I haven't experienced anything like that in a long time. And we both have a very, very similar taste in things, and then very different. So it works out very well. And before we knew it, I'm trying to think, when we decided we were going to kind of go for I think, in the beginning, we were like, hey, well, let's try to shoot for an album. And we just started writing, and then we kind of got impatient, because we were like, by the time we finished 10 or 12 songs, and then, you find someone to put it out. And then with the press and plant delays at this point in time, being 9 or 10 months or something crazy like that, it's never going to happen. So, let's put out the single. And then, we did Cruel Summer, and then, we got, the response was amazing. And then we're both kind of impatient, with, I guess, unleashing our, creative works. And we're like, fuck it, let's shoot for 5 more songs, and then we'll unleash an EP, online. And that's what we just did today. Yeah, it was today, came out. So yeah, it's been really cool. But with that, we probably started on it back in the EP, I think back in October, beginning of October. And then it was just completed maybe 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I worked feverishly on it. I know she did too, revising. We both kind of wanted to shoot for something different from the bands that we had been in, and something where we could push ourselves. And I enjoyed it too, because it enabled me to learn more about mix again recording. I already knew a lot, but for what I wanted to pull off, some of the cool sounds where we're referencing, I guess vibe wise, suburban lawns, or the sound effects you hear in early 70s glam. I'm gonna have to figure this out and see how to do this. And I did. It took a long time. So I think for most of it, on most weekends while we were recording and writing, I would only sleep one night per weekend, then go back to work on Monday. But usually the first night of the weekend, I'd stay awake all night writing, recording, and then we just keep going over it. And then, just so many ideas with so many different things we want to do. And it's kind of referencing both of us, our influences, I would say from age 0 to, the age of 15, kind of the, kind of different stuff, that could be Rick Springfield, Prince, the Waitresses, just anything and everything outside of punk. And that's very exciting for me. I don't feel limited at all with it. And it just kind of, took on a life of its own, is the best I could say. And I've never been worked that feverishly, mouth's dry, on a release. And I don't think ever, where I was just, hell bent on just making the best songs possible and getting the best production possible. I guess learning how to do that, the technical aspect was very exciting, because for once I can actually have what you heard this morning is what I heard in my head, 5 months ago, instead of, I guess in the past when I've done releases and they come out and what I'm hearing in my head isn't always what's on the record, and it's heartbreaking at times. I'm I don't know why I can't get it to sound like that. And now I do, for the most part. So yeah, it's kind of a rebirth. Yeah, that's how I describe it, rebirth. And
that's a pretty accurate description.
yeah, it's just cool. And the coolest thing about that happening is like getting that excited, getting that, inspired. Like you guys are still out here doing what you've always done. And that's so fucking cool, and there's still so many people out there that, are, into, those sounds or what I'm doing. It's really fucking cool. I didn't think that my late 40s would kick ass, and they're way
few people's late 40s do, though.
Yeah,
you're one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, well, I guess it's all what you decide to do with it, and I just kind of, I'm one of those people, like, with the window of opportunity, like those windows like only appear once. How people say there's always a next time. There's never a next time. That's my advice for the day, for the night. There's never a next time. And, yeah. And when you're in that process, it's kind of like that. I think it's Jerry Lee Lewis, like tomorrow always has to be the end of the world, and it kind of drives you, and that's how I approach everything I do. Whether tomorrow's going to be here or not, it's immaterial. It's all about being in that moment and capturing it in the most genuine way possible, and just keeping things genuine. That's a big thing for me. So I don't like disingenuous music. I don't care for it. But yeah, this is cool. This is cool. And like we have even more. We have tons of demo songs that we've done. Things are only half written, and it's an amazing band. It's the coolest thing I've done, maybe ever, because the skills I have now, I didn't have those. I didn't know how to record, mix. I didn't know what mastering was in 1996, so it's cool. It's like I cracked the code, or temporarily cracked the code. Only time will tell.
Interesting. Well, hey man, I want to tell you, me being a Prostitutes fan, I think probably since the first 7-inch came out, this is probably my favorite thing you've ever done.
Really? Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah. I love hearing that, man. That means so much to me. And that's kind of like the approach I took. I'm like, if I'm going to do this, like, it has to be the best fucking thing I've ever done. I always want to outdo the last thing I did, but this one, I'm like, I really, really want to outdo myself on it. And thank you. I mean, that means the world to me. And I would say it's the most accurate representation of my insane mind. It's just very much me. And I feel like I can just be me, like in this band. And it's just really cool. And I'm glad people are digging it, and I always want to write something that, it's I don't know, man, it's gonna, shake your world up when you hear it, because otherwise I'm like, why should I be fucking doing it? So I know there's some bands who are like, well, that sounds all right and whatever. I'm like, why would you put that out? Like, who cares? Like, it should be, I don't know. That's just how I am with stuff, like it's got to be all or nothing, I guess, for the most part. Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Where can people go? Like, where's the best place to go for people to hear your music?
Cool. Bandcamp. So it's just, I don't have the web address memorized or anything like that. But if you just typed in the Trouble Seekers, Bandcamp, it'll come up. I think we're the only Trouble Seekers on there. And then, Spotify, YouTube, all those places, the new EPs up on there. And that's with all the new stuff I'm doing. And then we're on Instagram. I think that's at the Trouble Seekers. And I think the Facebook page is the same as that. So yeah, that's your best bet, any of those. So I'm pretty sure we're the only Trouble Seekers out there. I know with the Prostitutes, there's like 20 other bands in the world that have the name. But the Trouble Seekers, I think, we're on our own with that one. So it should be easy to find. But for like Prostitute stuff, the last 7-inch, I think you can still get that from Last Punk Rockers Records in Germany, who put that out. So that's where you go for that. I'm not sure I don't think there was a US distributor on that.
Really? Fuck.
Yeah, not that I know of.
All right, man. Well, Josh, do you have anything
Cool.
else?
We are just really thankful that you joined us on this show. You were
Yeah.
very high on our list when we started thinking about
thank you.
who we wanted to have on. So we were excited that you said yes, and we were excited to have you on. And this was an awesome show.
Awesome. Yeah, it was awesome for me too. I've been looking forward to it. So yeah, it's really fucking cool, and it's so nice to be able to do like an interview where I can talk and kind of explain everything, you know. Yeah, like in a format like this. So yeah, I had a great time. This is really cool, and I hope you guys got what you wanted, you know, out of it.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
course.
for sure.
It's a lot to cover. It's one of those after I answer each question, I'm like, oh shit, what about this? What, you know, I could write volumes. Maybe I will. But yeah, we'll have to do it again sometime though, and I'll definitely keep you guys informed with what's going on. Trouble Seekers.
Yeah, man, maybe we can have Hillary on too next time or something.
Yeah, she'd totally be down for it. She'd totally be cool with that. Yeah, I'll let her know. And
awesome.
Yeah, thank you guys for all the support, and Josh for keeping the band alive through the years. Thank you. You're like my lifeline. And thanks, Jay. It's your questions were great. So it was a lot of fun.
Thanks, man.
Cool.
All right. Let me just go through our thing real quick, and then I'll end the recording. Anyway, so I just want to end our show today by saying, on behalf of our guest, Kevin McGovern, Josh, and myself, Jay Castro, we'd like to thank you all for tuning in to our humble broadcast. If you like what you heard, please hit that subscribe button, and if possible, leave us a review of our podcast. Not only does it help our show, of course, but it also helps spread the word about all the amazing folks we have on our show. This is the Born Too Late podcast, signing off.